Welcome to the Crypto Guild. I'm your host Rahul, and on this channel we talk everything crypto. So let's get into it. So guys, today I wanted to talk to you about an important upgrade that's coming up for Ethereum, and I wanted to discuss what the implications are of the upgrade, why they're doing the upgrade, so on and so forth. What impact is it going to have on Ethereum overall? So let's start talking about it. So in a simple word, or in a simple sentence rather, the reason this upgrade was proposed was because the gas fees or the transaction fees you currently pay on Ethereum is frankly out of control. So if you guys have done a transaction on Ethereum during its sort of congestion periods, you'll see that even if you're moving a small amount of Ethereum around, even $300-400 worth, the fees on that transaction can be as high as $40. So that's untenable, and as the price of Ethereum continues to rise, right, that's going to become more and more expensive, and frankly, it's not going to really work for the public at large. So the founder of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, back in 2018 actually proposed EIP 1559, and what it's trying to do is essentially reduce the Ethereum fees, right, the transaction fees. So the way it works sort of currently is it works on sort of like a simple auction kind of pricing mechanism, which is to say that every time you do a transaction on Ethereum, you have to sort of include a gas fees or a transaction fee. Now the problem is that this simple auction method gives preference to higher fees. So what ends up happening is somewhat of like a bidding war amongst users who want to have their transactions committed quickly. They include a much higher fees to make sure that it is, that it is done, that it is completed. And the network can only show you sort of like what fees was paid last. And so you can look at that figure and then you can figure out, or you can then, I guess, guesstimate how much you want to put in to make sure your transaction is committed sort of like in a timely manner. But you actually have no way of specifically knowing exactly what the fees is. You could look at a fee figure and bid slightly, above it or below it, but you have no idea what bids are being done by other users. So what ends up typically happening is that users, for the most part, tend to overpay the fees on Ethereum. So let's look at this interesting chart by Coinmetrics. So this shows you sort of the mean versus the median in terms of fees on Ethereum. And what you'll notice that over the years, as the fee has, as the network has gained more adoption, the fees has also gone up, but you'll notice that the median fees is about approximately 50% less than the average fees paid by users. That's a lot, right? So that's a lot. And this situation only arises because the user has no way of knowing exactly what bids are being done to commit transaction fees. So you kind of guesstimate and you kind of go from there. And what ends up happening is you end up overpaying, right? So that's the problem that Vitalik and the Ethereum team were looking to solve. So let's talk a little bit now about sort of EIP 1559 and how it goes about solving that, this problem of like higher fees. Okay, so let's talk about what EIP 1559 does to actually reduce the fees. Now, this is a pretty, again, technical topic, but I'm going to sort of give you the highlights of the proposal, right? So point number one is they're changing sort of like the fee structure itself. So instead of having one sort of transaction fee where you're guessing, what the optimal amount is to get your transactions committed in a timely sort of manner, that fees has actually been broken into sort of like two parts. So the first part is called the base fees. Now this base fees will be calculated by the network and will be proposed to the user, right? And sort of the network knows exactly, the amount of traffic, how much congestion there is. So it's going to propose the fee keeping all those variables in mind. So you're going to get a much more predictable fee structure, right? And it is going to be less as well. In fact, the chart that we saw earlier, right? I think it'll be closer to the median, right? So in terms of the drop in fees, it'll actually come down closer to the median. And then the second component of the fees will be an inclusion fee or a tip that you will give the miners. Now for me, this is an interesting sort of variable over here. Now it's interesting, what will be interesting to see is how users use this tip mechanism, right? Because if you give like a huge tip, again, your transactions will be prioritized faster than others. So it might throw a monkey wrench into this proposal, but no one really knows. Right now they've done a bunch of simulations to show that overall the gas fees will reduce, right? So by breaking it up into this like two-piece gas fee structure, right? That's like one thing that EIP 1559 has introduced, right? And so what's interesting is that the network fees component of this two-step fee now that you have, right? This network fee component is actually going to get burned, okay? And by burned, that essentially means it's going to get like destroyed. It's not going to be given to anyone. It's just going to be removed from the Ethereum sort of like ecosystem, right? So that's a huge difference from the way it used to work before, because before that fees essentially used to go completely to the miners. In this scenario, once EIP 1559 is launched, the miners will effectively only get the tip that you offer, and the rest of it will be burned. So this actually has certain implications for the Ethereum ecosystem as a whole. So before EIP 1559, the inflation rate on Ethereum was about 4.5% to 5%. But now, given that EIP 1559 is sort of coming into play, what's going to happen is the inflation is actually going to come down, right? And so it's going to come down more to the 0.5 to 1% range, which to me overall does wonders for the tokenomics of Ethereum. It definitely improves them, right? It makes it a more scarce resource. So this will have a good effect, according to me, on the overall longevity of Ethereum. And then the second thing that EIP 1559 is proposing is sort of elastic block sizes. So what does that mean? So well, what that means is that especially during periods of congestion in the network, the block sizes are going to be able to expand or contract, right, to sort of accommodate that congestion. So when there's more transactions going through the network, the block sizes will increase and be able to include more transactions, right, in that particular block. And the effect that that's going to have on the Ethereum ecosystem and the experience you, the user, will have is that your blocks will get committed slightly faster than they were being committed previously, before the introduction of this proposal. So you've got you've got your fees broken out into two parts, the network and the tip, and you also have now elastic sort of block sizes to sort of better handle the congestion on the Ethereum network. So there's going to be slightly sort of gained efficiencies in terms of speed and a much more predictable and less fee structure for Ethereum. So those are pretty much the highlights of it. As I mentioned before, the tip that you give as part of your fees, that could throw certain metrics off. But for the most part, this I believe like this proposal is going to be overall really, really good for Ethereum. It's going to improve its tokenomics. It's going to reduce its sort of inflation. It's going to sort of improve transaction times during points of congestion. And I will say that it will reduce fees probably more to the median levels we saw in the chart earlier. It's going to make it a whole lot more predictable. So overall, great news for Ethereum, great news for the ecosystem. And yeah, once it goes live, which it's due to do in July, probably mid-July of this year, it's going to be very interesting to see how the ecosystem sort of like responds and how the market responds. In general, I think the response by the market will be positive because everyone wants less fees. So overall, I think this is great for Ethereum. So that was a quick update, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. And until next time, peace.